So you're going to have to edit out that part that I had in there because Max Wagner is actually the citizen. You want me to just kind of back up and say the two?
I'll do some editing magic around
that,
your lack of actually taking this seriously.
Well, I take it seriously. I just didn't make a note in the right place. So
inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute, a podcast where we break down and celebrate the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And in this season, we are actually looking at Young Frankenstein. I'm Alan Sanders.
And I'm Walt Murray.
And joining us to basically end up the work week, we've got Tom Taylor once again from Indiana Jones Minute and a plethora of other podcasts. Welcome back, Tom.
Hey, hi guys.
Great to have you back with us and to spend the entire... You got a week-long sleepover. It's been kind of fun.
It's been nice, yeah. I'm out of toothpaste. I've been using my toothbrush every night, like my mom told me, and it's been good.
Yes, I am getting tired of pizza every night. I mean, I never thought I'd say that, but we've got to finish the dungeon and wrap things up because we're all supposed to get picked up later tonight.
Right.
All right, well, we are looking at minute number 50 of Young Frankenstein. And in minute number 50, we actually start off with the continuation of the town hall meeting where we'll see one of the elders basically, as we mentioned last minute, talk about this has happened 5 times before, but we take this very seriously, what you're alleging. And it will end with our imposing Inspector Kemp standing in front of a painting with his monocle over his eye patch.
Inspector Kemp.
All right, it's hard not to jump around on this.
It really is.
But when this elder, let's start off at the beginning if we can. When the elder number 2 starts screaming at the crowd to, pipe down and take this serious. We take this seriously as elders. I cannot help but hear his voice as he's yelling at poor Tom Wilkinson's character about his kids put a run on the bank. There hasn't been a run on the bank here. And I'm like, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Amazing.
Yes, it is. You're correct. You have spellbound me again. So, yeah, and I just still, it is such a great line that they have here that this is particularly painful for us, your elders, because this has happened 5 times before. And I know we jumped ahead a little bit in the last minute, but when is this town going to learn its lesson with these crazy Frankensteins?
Were there exactly 5 Frankenstein movies before this came out?
I need to look this up.
Universal, official ones or in that series, or...
I need to look it up because I know the 4 off the top of my head, and I thought there were 4. But maybe there was a 5th one or some other iteration that they're referencing. Maybe they're referencing the Hammer Frankenstein that came out?
Oh, weird. Maybe.
Too bad we don't have a
If only there was a magic box that I could put questions into and it would come back with answers.
Connect us to a library of information.
If your computer was somehow connected to every other computer in the world,
now that's
then you could glean information from all those different sources.
This sounds like some Frankenscience to me.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to take over the world. You have to excuse me.
Here's what, if I look at the official Universal run, the Universal monster pictures, they had the Mummy and they had the Wolfman and Dracula. When Frankenstein came out, it was Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and Ghost of Frankenstein, but they're including in the list a 1943 film, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
That's 5, right?
So that would be their
5.
5th iteration of the Frankenstein story, at least as they're grouping them here. There was obviously other movies, but with this particular look of the Universal monster, there are 5. I just completely forgot about Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
Yeah, that's a great line because of that. Just that they're naming movies. They counted the movies and they based the line on that. That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. But it also draws this movie into that universe. And we kind of talked about it before that, is this now part of the Frankenstein canon? And obviously they see themselves as part of the Frankenstein canon.
I would easily argue this is the 6th movie in the Universal monster picture series.
No question. I would.
Yeah.
I mean, it's filmed so similarly, and they've drawn from so many of the other movies to composite this movie. Like, there wasn't an Igor in the original Frankenstein.
Right.
You know, Igor doesn't show up until, I think, Son of Frankenstein, the third movie.
Right. I think
played
that's
by,
right.
Who was it? Bela Lugosi?
I think that's right. I think that's what
once again, if I
the
only
guys
had a
from
magic
BK
box.
said last week.
So he did composite a lot of Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks. And what's cool, if you've ever gotten, and he released this about 2 years ago, Mel Brooks released a coffee table book, The Making of or Behind the Scenes of Young Frankenstein. He talks extensively. In fact, I shared it on our Facebook page months ago. If you want to dig through it or just do a quick Google search, Mel Brooks in his own voice saying how they wanted to revere Frankenstein because as a kid, he grew up in terror of Frankenstein. His mom had to convince him that, first of all, if there was a Frankenstein, he's not going to swim across the ocean, come all the way to New York, have to climb the tenement building, 9 floors to come into your bedroom. Because he wanted to keep closing the window at night when it was like sweltering heat in the midst of the summer of New York because he'd seen this movie, and his mom had to convince him, there's no way Frankenstein's coming for you all the way over here. So, Mel Brooks revered these movies. I mean, later, I think in his career, he started to really mock things more, but I think this was more of an homage to Frankenstein as much as a parody. It wasn't really the mocking of Frankenstein.
No, and I think that for me as a viewer and as a fan, it has made me appreciate the other Frankenstein movies even more.
Yeah.
And I believe that Alan just found that it was Bela Lugosi.
It was Bela Lugosi. I thought so, but I just after last minute, I'm worried about giving people the wrong facts. Because everybody gets all their facts from podcasts, so that's got to be careful here.
That's right. And what podcast ever got anything wrong?
No, we didn't.
Particularly this one.
Yeah, well, we got to be careful diving too deep because that's usually when we lose all credibility. I'd rather just talk, in banal generalities. How about that?
It's just a movie.
All right. Well, as we're going through this scene, we've got, of course, the second elder, and he's really, upset with this line of basically accusation. He wants to make darn sure because this is, we've done this 5 times before, so we take this seriously. We can't make assumptions.
Yeah. I love that he says nightmares too, that we still have nightmares. For some reason that reminds me, it sounds a little bit like he was my boyfriend kind of line. Like it for these two elderly gentlemen, heads of the town to talk about suffering from nightmares from the last time there was a monster roaming around. It sounds like a little kid, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. These two guys just working together to try to keep the order of the town. And I mean, he owns this scene right here. I mean, for a moment, he's angry. He is the elder. We have respectability, and we are not going to have you, calling for a riot.
Right.
And this kind of has a shade of, all the times that you've ever given advice in your life and the person has just been like, no, that's fine. I'm going to go the opposite direction. It's like, you've been through this 5 times. Why are we giving the benefit of the doubt to this crazy person?
Yeah.
We all know where this one's going to land.
Okay, this reminds me of what Jerry would do in the middle of an episode when we're trying to be all serious and stuff. They've got some, looks like some silver service in front of them. Is this dinner? Do they eat dinner at the town hall meeting? Or what's
Maybe.
In front of them?
They got these little
they got this
little
accoutrements.
salt and pepper decanters or something.
If so, I'm going to more town hall meetings.
Yeah, I got to stop skipping the HOA meetings.
No kidding.
Well, it seems like they're the only ones who get anything. Everybody else is just sitting there.
Yeah, they're all sitting in the pews.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got what looks like a decanter, a crystal decanter full of a clear liquid. I'll assume it's water. You've got a couple of, serving type things. I'm just curious. It's like a silver service just sitting in front of them.
Well, since we're basically melding all of European culture into this one town with all the accents and everything, maybe it's high tea.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
There's no teapot.
That you can see.
That I can see. Well, no, I can see pretty clearly. There's no teapot. And if you've got a decanter of water, where are their cups? It's like they said, we need something in the foreground. We need something to give it scale.
Nobody will ever notice that we don't.
Go to the end of the pulpit. I need something to give it some scale. I just did a Jaws reference.
Very good.
There you go. Yeah, that was nice. I like that.
Yeah, we do that actually on BK on the Air when we do that radio show. It's nostalgic geekiness. It's like one of our unwritten rules. We try to figure out how to work in a Jaws reference at some point throughout the show. It doesn't always work, but we try.
Well, I basically throw it into just about every conversation I ever have. So.
Hoopa! Aren't you watching it? All right.
Hoopa!
Hoopa drives the boat, Chief. Oh, dear Lord. We got to do... Oh, we can't. You guys did it. You did it as one of your Patreon things.
We didn't do it minute by minute.
Somebody at the minute by minute, I think it's old.
Yeah.
No, we're only doing Gene Wilder movies minute by minute. We'll do other movies as specials if we get enough interest. We've got a couple of movies I'd love to do just more like what you guys are doing with Jaws and Close Encounters now, to have these more lengthy discussions where you take chunks of the movie rather than 1 minute at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, those have been fun.
All right, so after he gets done admonishing the townsmen for trying to basically whip everybody up into a fury, and it does seem almost contradictory to himself, like, hey, I've talked to this guy. That's what he said last minute. He's a normal guy. We can't jump to conclusions just because it's happened and given us nightmares 5 times before.
Right.
He does make a point now of saying, let us talk to the one person who has not had their opinion here. What do you think, Inspector Kemp? Now... we have a hysterical scene with Inspector Kemp right here. And, Walt, I want you. When you first saw this, what were your thoughts?
Oh, I would imagine that the best thing about this scene when I first saw it was I'm glad there was no dialogue because there's no way I would have heard it. I think I was laughing to the point where I could hardly breathe. I mean, this is just an amazing scene. And who came up with this? This is incredible. And too, I was thinking about this. I come from a law enforcement family. How is this guy in law enforcement? He's got a wooden arm that he can use to light cigars with. He has one eye. I mean, this guy's a mess. But he's also the town authority on the Frankensteins and monsters. So just an amazing scene. And Tom, I know you've looked at a lot of movies and looked at a lot of movies a minute at a time. Have you ever had another scene like this that you've looked at that was as kind of off the wall as this one is?
I have often been thinking lately of, and we're not doing this, but somebody is. Somebody's doing, Scott Corelli and those guys are doing Spider-Man 2 Minute right now.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene in Spider-Man 2 early on in the movie where Peter's like delivering pizzas, and he's had to do it in kind of a Spider-Man way, and he like enters this building through like a broom closet or something. And there's like a maybe 30 to 45 second scene of him trying to close the door without the brooms and mops and stuff falling back and everything, and it's like a thing where it's like one shot of him just really awkwardly trying to get the thing closed, and they spend a lot of time on it, and it's kind of awesome. And you don't know, like, you would never miss anything like that if they didn't put it in the movie. You wouldn't be like, oh, there wasn't a scene with the mop coming out of the door. That's too bad. But it's like, you love that they're doing it. You're like, oh, this is going to be a good movie because they're taking the time to do something kind of stupid and random like this, and it's so awesome.
And it fits that character so well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what this is. Yeah, it's just like this business. Like, he doesn't need to be doing almost any of the moves that he's doing right now with like, well, I'm only noticing right now that he's standing next to a pencil sharpener. Is he just sharpening his cigar in the pencil sharpener?
Well, it looks like the end is that way, doesn't it? When he goes,
kinda.
Because yes, talk about, we think we're anachronistic, but all we have to remember, it is 1974. Yes, there's a pencil sharpener mounted to the wall where you could never really get to it based on the fact that there's a little small table in the way with a mug full of water or whatever.
That's true. Well, it's super, like, he kind of blows it on the end of the cigar it almost looks like he's turning away from the pencil sharpener. Like he's like, I don't know, like I'm not a big smoker, but don't you like sort of clip the end of a cigar or something before you smoke it, and like, yeah, maybe just use the pencil sharpener for that. Yeah,
if you look if you pause it right at second 32, it looks like a sharpened pencil.
It does.
It's got a point.
Yeah,
and this is not, and I guess I can admit that I have indulged in cigars from time to time, but this is not a torpedo roll, but it shouldn't be like that. It should be rounded at the end, and you either clip the end, which would be flat and cut, or you use a punch, which would still be then rounded.
Right.
It would not be looking like a pencil.
No. And then you would also have, like, all the tobacco would fall off the end if you actually really did that in a pencil sharpener.
Oh, no, it would ground to nothing. It would not,
work.
it would not hold this shape at all.
Not work.
Contrary to popular belief, the leaf inside a cigar is not hard enough like wood to actually sharpen like this.
Wait, what? What are you smoking?
Who would have known?
Huh.
I will tell you, according to the
day.
script, all this business does not exist in the script.
Oh, that's funny.
In fact, it says here, Inspector Kemp sits in his chair at the back of the room next to a potbelly stove. His arms are folded. An unlit cigarette dangles from his cigarette holder. He calmly uncrosses his right wooden arm, sticks one finger into the stove until it catches fire, then lights his cigarette with his burning finger. He calmly dunks his burning finger into a beer stein. It hisses out, and he begins speaking, "A riot is an ugly thing." He doesn't do any of the machinations, any of this movement, any of the sense that this arm is on some kind of a bion. What were those magnetic things we grew up with kids, like a bionicle or not bionicle? What were they called? Micronauts.
Micronauts, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like some kind of micronaut or something, like on a ratchet or something. And adding all the Foley effects, because he was just doing this as pantomime.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't a real mechanical anything. He did all these movements via just practicing these movements.
Well, and it's very convincing. I mean, it's his arm is very mechanical, and I mean, it's a very convincing scene.
Yeah. Do you think this is anything? Is there anything Dr. Strangelove about this?
I think so.
Arm? Yeah.
I think so. I think you have no choice but to kind of see some of the parallels. At least Kenneth Mars making that choice to be more like a character from Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, it could be.
I wonder how they choreographed this. I mean, this would seem like a very tough scene to act and to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a note here. I was just kind of going through some of these, and it says one of Kenneth Mars' specialties is impenetrable accents. Now, we don't hear him yet, but I wanted to kind of get this in while we've got Tom here. In Brooks's The Producers, he played the crazed Nazi playwright Franz Liebkind. He was the orthodontically challenged W.D. Budd Prize on Fernwood Tonight, and he impersonated Serbian film critic John Simon in What's Up, Doc? And then I got a quote here that says, Ken Mars brought an insanity to the part of Inspector Kemp. That was said by Gene Wilder. He said, he had to be adjusted to as far as the script was concerned. Recently, Mars then, it just goes on to say, it played on Malcolm in the Middle as Otto Mancusser. But apparently that he took this character and ran so far with it that even Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks had to sit back and go, well, do we stop him or do we just kind of go with it? I believe actually Mel Brooks, when he approached Kenneth Mars, he said, I've got a part for you. What do you think? Your guy is going to be a monocle-wearing inspector, but he wears a monocle over an eye patch. Kenneth Mars goes, a monocle over an eye patch? I'm there.
Yeah, and wasn't he working on something else and ended up having to quit that or something? And I know he was in a whole different part of the country and had to come to California to shoot this. But he really does play this part to absolute perfection. I mean, And so many, we keep saying this about different actors in this movie, that this actor owned this part. He owns the Inspector Kemp part.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. This guy, from the minute he first comes on, and every time he's on, when I was rewatching it, getting ready for this podcast, even his dialogue was sometimes muddy because he chose that way where it's like, what did he just say? It's like, it's great. He just gets lost in this character. Now, wasn't there an inspector in one of the original Frankenstein movies that had an arm ripped off by the monster?
I think so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think this is like one of those, pulling from one of the 5 previous movies, pretty much the previous 4. I think that 5th one is kind of thrown in there. I don't know if they did any, except for the joke, werewolf, their wolf. I don't know if there's any Frankenstein meets the werewolf. But it's interesting to see how they pulled from different pieces to kind of put this movie together and kind of create characters that still throw back to the movies, but are completely new creations of, to move into this one.
Yeah. Well, Inspector Kemp's definitely been through the fray. I mean, missing an eye, missing an arm. I mean, he's had a rough go of it so far.
It would be funny if he was supposed to be the son or grandson of the guy who lost his arm in the other Frankenstein movie, but he still has a fake arm. Like, even though it didn't happen to him, he just sort of inherited the fake arm.
That would be a weird genetic change.
It just runs in the family. I don't know. We all got fake arms.
We all suffer from some tragic, wagon wheel accident as in our youth, and it just so happens to put our eye out.
Yeah.
Maybe he was Maybe he was trying out for the third Thor movie.
Oh, maybe.
Thor Ragnarok. We're going to look just like Dad now.
Well, who in the world would have this guy as their chief law enforcement officer, too? I mean, no arm, no eye.
You say that, but this entire crowd is like, oh, yeah, Inspector Kemp. No, don't
everybody
mess with
turns
him.
around. Oh, yeah, we need to hear from Inspector Kemp.
I swear I had a note here about this kludged together character that he plays, and I can't find it now, and it's kind of me off because I've got to learn to organize my notes better.
I know. It's kind of been a mess this week.
Well, I'm just noticing, I know I've seen him in a ton of stuff, and so I just was looking at IMDb to see what some of those things were, and I remembered him from the Parallax View with Warren Beatty, which it turns out was the exact same year as this, which is crazy because in that he just plays this 100% straight regular guy. Like he's an FBI agent and he's just, giving Warren Beatty some information, and they're riding on a little train in a park. And there's like nothing at all Inspector Kemp about it. So I always love when I can see an actor just like completely convincingly do something totally normal and also completely off the wall like this.
Yeah, when you get lost, we had Adam Boyer, an actor here on our show a few weeks back, who said, if you notice me acting, I'm not doing my job.
Right.
You're supposed to get so lost into what they're doing on screen that you don't think to question, would he talk like that? Would he act like that? Would he, you just, and I do love when you see a character who does one kind of like a goofy, like just kind of this role, and then the next time you see him, you almost can't imagine it's the same person.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, too, because we have him playing in several Mel Brooks movies, very, very different characters.
Mm-hmm.
And he does great with every one of them.
Yeah.
All right, so when we're going through this, when we first, and I asked you, Walt, when you first saw all these machinations that he's going through, all these almost like Transformer-ish kind of moves with his arm clicking and trying to put it in place. Tom, your thoughts on this when you saw it, this sort of very slapstick moment with Inspector Kemp?
Yeah, I think I did immediately think of Dr. Strangelove, but I wasn't sure why. I mean, yes, he's got a fake arm, and it's kind of like Dr. Strangelove's thing was that like his arm just kept doing stuff, like it was out of his control. It seemed like, but then here it's like the exact opposite. He's like he's almost showing off how fake his arm is. And, just making this huge show of like lighting a cigar and lighting his finger and, lighting the cigar with the finger and putting the finger out. And like everything's like more done than it needs to be. And you're just transfixed. You're like, oh my God. And like even as this minute ends, he's about to say something and we miss it. We don't quite get it yet at the end of this minute. But you're like, wow, what is this guy going to say? This weird guy with the eye patch under his monocle and everything and the fake arm and the lit thing and everything. Like, what is going to come out of this guy's mouth? And so you guys will find out next week, but I'm not going to ever find out.
No, you'll just have to listen to the podcast.
You'll have to listen.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Well, I found my note. Here it is. Young Frankenstein.
Oh, nice.
Lampooned highlights of all the old Frankenstein movies. Kenneth Mars was spoofing Inspector Kroll, who was in Son of Frankenstein. That inspector, who had been played by Lionel Atwill, got his arm torn off by the monster and still challenged the son of Dr. Frankenstein to a game of darts in that movie. Co-writer Gene Wilder also got the idea from Return of and Ghost of Frankenstein and said Kenneth Mars also chose to bring shades of Dr. Strangelove to the film as well. So there you go. It's all confirmed.
There you go.
Very interesting.
See, we knew what we were talking about, even if we didn't really know what we were talking about.
Right.
Well,
we put on a good show.
Yeah, lucky on that one.
Hooper drives the boat, Chief. Just go back to that. All right. Now, I do have a note on this painting that he does eventually stand in front of when he makes the dramatic turn to show us he's wearing a monocle. Like, we think we see a monocle over an eye patch, but it confirms he's wearing this monocle over his eye patch. But this painting is called The Children of Charles I by Anthony Van Dyke. And that is the name of the painting. So if you want to play trivia, if you do your weekly trip to whenever watering hole in the evening and you got your trivia out there and they say, hey, in Young Frankenstein, what's the name of that painting? It's The Children of Charles I.
Wow. Now we know.
No, I have no idea what the significance is of that. It just says that's the name of I just looked it up and that's the name of the painting. So just every time I'm watching him go through the machinations, it's funny as
every one of his movements is so overplayed. I mean,
yeah.
he is overacting on everything. And it's just great that he has to hit his arm to get it to come up with the flame. But I don't know why I find this so funny, but when he puts his arm in the beer and comes back out and flings it up, and that big glob of beer foam goes flying.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that makes me laugh every single time I see it.
One thing I can't figure out, because he does this dramatic stop in front of the painting and blows smoke as if somehow, and I guess I just don't know the significance of the painting, but it's almost like he's posing intentionally in front of this painting to blow his smoke, and then eventually cocks his head enough that we see the eye patch, and we see the monocle, and we see this gruff demeanor of this inspector that he is being asked his opinion on the matter, which we don't get to hear yet in this minute. But it's very striking, but also imposing, and yet very comedic all at the same time.
Yeah, and he even overplays taking the cigar out of his mouth.
Right. He's having a ball.
He has.
You got to imagine that Kevin Mars is just having an amazing time.
That had to be an awesome part to play.
Yeah.
Because apparently they even let him improvise, and I don't know how you improvise all that stuff, but...
Yeah, it definitely was not in, like I said, it was not in the script initially, so we're going to have to wait and see. I will tell you this, one of the things I wanted to add as we kind of start to wind things down here, when we go back to the elders talking, one of them, before even asking for Inspector Kemp, when he says, "Would you speak to us, please?" they actually make a comment about saying that we know one person has been through his fair share of turmoil. He, more than any of us, has learned through personal misfortune to remain calm and objective in his quiet but constant pursuit of justice. And then we hear, "Inspector Kemp, would you speak to us, please?" So they dropped all of that about...
Oh, interesting.
You're the calm voice of reason. Even though you've had your arm torn off and you lost an eye and you've been through this before with a creature, you're the voice of reason in the room. This, by the way, this is the voice of reason.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We got a problem.
So, anyway.
Dignity.
Well, this is where we are going to end minute number 50. We're not quite to the halfway point, almost. 3 more episodes will be exactly halfway through, but it has been our pleasure to have Tom Taylor with the Indiana Jones Minute and others joining us here today. Tom, was there anything more in this minute you wanted to add?
I don't think so, but I just love Kenneth Mars. I love this role, and I'm jealous of you guys that you get to watch more of it next week.
Walt, what about you?
I just love that 15 seconds into the minute, one of the elders says, "Inspector Kemp, will you talk to us, please?" And for the whole rest of the minute, he doesn't say a word.
Well, he's got to perform
Got some
first.
stuff to do.
He's got some business going on. He's got some cigar business.
Yes, a little warm up for us. So,
you know what though? And as a side comment to this, we said before, and we even said this week, we've had with other guests, how this movie gives us time. It gives us pauses. It takes its time in places. And even though there's a lot of business, you said it even, I think, today. If we went straight to his first line while he was trying to do this, we wouldn't hear anything he was saying. We've got time to laugh and just literally grab our sides at how funny this is of what he's doing. And so we don't miss what he's about to tell us. He gives us time to get through this.
Yeah. And when you see him, it's almost like, what is this all about? And it gives you plenty of time to think about that.
And then, after we get done with all of this, nonsense of his motions and all these gesticulations he's going through, coming up in the next minute next week, we're going to have to now dive past a very heavy accent that he decided to adopt for this character as well.
Yes.
So, all right, well, we have some business to do here as well, because we had one of our Patreon subscribers is at the associate producer level. So it's time for us to say thank you to Tara Bain. She gets the shout out for helping to produce today's episode, wrapping up the work week. It's always good to produce a Friday episode, because then you go out for drinks after.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tara.
And with that, let's go to Tom quickly, because you guys have a Patreon page to support what you guys do, because this isn't free. You've got to host. You've got to do things. You've got to take time away from family and friends. So, Tom Taylor, where can people go to support the Indiana Jones Minute?
People can help me make my hobby seem legitimate to my family by going to patreon.com/Indiana Jones Minute. And yeah, over there you can get our bonus show, Anything Goes, where we talk about, we've just been talking about other movies mostly. We've talked about Jaws, Close Encounters, E.T. we're working on now. We've done some episodes about the Indiana Jones comic book from the 80s, the original Marvel comic. And yeah, we're having a ball over there. We do stickers every month. Depending on what level you join us at, you can we write you a postcard every month. Like, Jared, Pete, and I each write you a postcard and just send you a nice postcard and keep in touch the old-fashioned way.
Oh, that'd be kind of neat to get that in the mailbox.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Of course, that's a lot of work.
It is, but it's not bad work. It's fun.
Nice work if you can get it.
Absolutely.
And you can get it if you try. All right. And you've also got a young, what is it, a fiction book, a young adult book?
Yeah, that's right. In Memory of Todd Woods. You can either just find that on Amazon, and you can get it either as a paperback or as a Kindle book, or you can go to iamtomtaylor.com and you can find out more about it there.
Walt, as we rapidly finish this minute, we want people to hang on to the end because, it's important to get you never know what might be at the end.
That's right.
Where can people find us? And maybe if they've stumbled across us today, thanks to Tom Taylor's name being in our website, they go, I'm just going to listen to Tom Taylor minutes. If they want to go back and try all the way to get from episode 1 all the way up to the Tom Taylor minutes, where do they go?
The best place to go is to find us on iTunes and just search for us at The Wilder Ride. Subscribe to our show. You'll get all of the previous episodes loaded into your phone there or whatever you're listening on. You can also find us at thewilderride.com. And,
I love the restraint.
And of course, you may have to put www in front of that.
No!
Oh, man.
I'll do better next week. And from there, you can find our Patreon page. You can find our Facebook listeners group. You can find all the other great places where you can get our podcast.
And we definitely want you coming back next week because our guest joining us, no stranger to crazy characters in a post-apocalyptic world. We have Rick Ingram joining us from the Mad Max Minute. Perfect guy to bring in to try to explain to us how does an Inspector Kemp make his way through life and into this world of ours of Young Frankenstein. So we will start minute 51 with Inspector Kemp opening his mouth and telling us what he thinks, and we end with him still telling us what he thinks with the lines, to pay a little, and we're not sure to pay a little what, so you'll have to come back Monday to get all of it. Tom Taylor, thanks so much for being here with us on this Wilder Ride.
Oh, thank you guys. This has been great.
Tom, it's been a pleasure.
And until Monday, you don't need the www.
Wait, then how is the World Wide Web going to work?
You're not 1996.
Well, I'm wearing the same
Just
clothes.
shut up.
Let Hooper take a turn.
Hooper drives the boat, Chief.